We are joined with Lawrence Wilkerson. Colonel, give me 1 second. I want to make sure that I replied to everybody in that email, and then I didn't leave out. Let me make sure. Give me 1 second. Yes, I sent it to both. Okay, good. Last time I accidentally only sent it to one person. That's why I'm making sure that I sent it to both. How you doing this morning? You doing all right?
I never answer that question anymore.
Really? You're just giving up.
When I get up in the morning, like I did this morning, go do my 1 hour workout and I survive it, I feel good.
Well, okay. Well, feel good is good. I'll go with
I was just reading Jerry Rice's comments about how he gets up in the morning and doesn't really look forward to his workout, but does it anyway. And then by the end of it, he feels great.
How old is Jerry Rice, by the way? He has to be in his 70s at this point?
Yeah, and looking good. I mean, he's back to his playing weight.
Is he?
Yeah. Takes long walks with his big dog. Knee hurts sometimes, but
yeah.
It's a good little vignette in National Geographic magazine about people who have more or less licked old age.
Wow. That's impressive, especially being a football player.
Yeah.
I mean, usually their bodies are ripped at the,
But Jerry was not as fast as most, not as big as most. He just worked harder than anybody on the playing field. I mean, there is no doubt about that. And he perfected his pass patterns in a way that no one has, I think. He holds lots of records in that regard. 3 Super Bowl rings. And Jerry just made himself good.
He the best in the business. He was easily one of the best in the business. Some of the audience who are younger are like, who are they talking about? Jerry Rice was a fantastic football player.
Like when I mentioned Colin Powell, and they go, who?
Right. It's like, who's that guy? Who are you talking about? Just for the audience, Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, former distinguished visiting professor for government and public policy at the College of William & Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. He also taught for 6 years in the University Honors Program at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. He is also, and probably best known, as retired United States Army Colonel and former Chief of Staff for United States Secretary of State Colin Powell. I hear my other guests. Chief is here. What's happening, man? You doing okay today?
Is that to me?
Yes, that one's to you.
I'm doing well, and sorry, I'm at an operating location different from my normal setting, and so we have bad lighting, but I'm here, ready to go.
You are perfectly fine, and I appreciate you however you show up. Dennis Fritz, he is a retired Command Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force. He's former director of the Eisenhower Media Network, with the mission to promote peace and diplomacy over war, a valuable asset. While on active duty, he served as Principal Senior Advisor to 4-star commanders of the Pacific Air Force and Air Force Space Command. He also held additional duty as Senior Enlisted Advisor to Command of North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD. He is author of Deadly Betrayal, The Truth About Why the United States Invaded Iraq. Gentlemen, I'm glad that you both can join me today. Initially, this conversation was going to be on Bagram Airbase, and I do want to hit that. In fact, let's hit that first, and then we can bounce over to Donald Trump and his what is being called new rhetoric on the issue of Ukraine. Colonel, I'll start with you. I think I started with Chief Fritz last time. Why is Donald Trump trying to get his hands back on Bagram's airbase in Afghanistan, basically trying to reinvade Afghanistan? I mean, for all intents and purposes, Trump was the one that wanted to pull out of Afghanistan. Joe Biden screwed up the pullout. Apparently, a deal was made between the United States and the Taliban for no further aggression. And yes, I know deal with the U.S. is not that big of an issue for the U.S. to blow those off. But I have to imagine that he wants the airbase for reasons that this is not just coming out of the blue. What would the U.S. get out of acquiring or reacquiring Bagram's airbase? And by the way, Soviet-built base. Donald Trump saying this was an American base is nonsense. But what is he trying to get out of this?
The Pentagon did some strategic thinking about its presence in Afghanistan some time ago, in the middle of what was a real disaster brewing, as we all saw in the evacuation. But they did some real heavy strategic thinking, and there were 3 reasons And I suspect those reasons have percolated back up to the clown that is Donald Trump. And he just picked them up and ran with them. Those reasons are, one, Bagram presence would put the United States in a position to overwatch possibly the most dangerous, in some instances, unstable nuclear stockpile in the world. A huge stockpile too, Pakistan's.
Yeah.
Second, it would allow the CIA, at a minimum, a presence in Afghanistan, which it could exploit were a war to break out with China, particularly to use the Uyghurs in Xinjiang province, of which there are about 15 million, to destabilize China. And then third, it sits, and this is probably the most important reason, it sits astride the most dynamic and potentially successful base road initiative of China. And it would give the United States a position from which to interdict that base road initiative should it have to do so. So it's a very strategic location, as the British knew until, fought like the devil not to have to get out, but wound up having to get out. It's very, very strategically placed for a critical region of the world. I would argue, in terms of economic might, trade might, commerce, it is the most strategic region on the face of the earth, rapidly becoming visible as such. So there are reasons.
Jamal, I would add to that. If you think about everything, as I mentioned before, that the United States does, it's always about power and resources. One of the things about President Trump is that he says the quiet part out loud. In other words, these are always the American imperialism goals.
And the stupid part.
Yeah, exactly. Those things that are being said quite loud, whether you want to call it deep state or other, the neocons, whatever. Trump says everything out loud. When you think about, and you were right, the Soviets built it, I think, in the 1950s, going that far back, and we went in and rebuilt it. And you probably saw me shaking my head when Larry was mentioning about China. I think it's all about China. If you remember, if you don't know this, as we were fighting a war with the Taliban, the Chinese were actually in there mining at the time. Think about that. Yes. And Afghanistan has a lot of resources. I want you to think about this. We think about the open and all that, but they have a lot of natural resources. And so that is important too. So I don't think it's something that Trump just thought about himself. He just said it out loud what others are thinking. And so I think it'll be dumb. We've already learned our lesson in trying to fight the Taliban. The Taliban will fight you back, as we know. And look, I just want to mention something else too that you alluded to, and neocons and Republicans that are against Biden have said, how it was a stupid whatever, getting out of Afghanistan. Well, let me share something with you. When you're getting out of any country, it's dangerous. I mean, if you look at Vietnam, flying helicopters to get all our folks out of there. I mean, it's dangerous, and so. I don't be quite frank with you. I don't care if it was Bush, Trump, Biden, Obama. It would have been dangerous getting out of Afghanistan. And I think once again, it's rhetoric, by politicians, so we keep using that. It would have been dangerous. The military performed it, but we always use Biden or whomever the president is, I guess because they're at the top of the chain. But that would have been dangerous for anybody getting out of Afghanistan.
Well, let me add to that a little bit, Jamal.
Please.
A withdrawal under pressure is the most difficult military operation in all the lexicon of military operations. It just is, for obvious reasons to military professionals. But it could have been done a lot better, and I think part of the blame accrues not to Biden, but to General Donahue. The same General Donahue who made the impolitic and utterly ridiculously stupid statements about falling on Kaliningrad in 48 hours and taking it. This is the guy who commands all the U.S. Army troops in Europe now. Think about that. He had a lot to do with that very difficult operation being handled so badly. And let me give you a contrast. Tony Zinni, then the overall commander for our withdrawal from Somalia, did the same thing, a withdrawal under pressure. He didn't lose a soul. It was a beautifully executed operation. It makes a lot of difference who the general is in charge of this very difficult operation.
Exactly. And but like I said, we play politics, and I guess Biden at the top of the food chain, but usually it's a military operation. The other thing, as Larry alluded to, doing it under pressure. I think if you remember back too, we were trying to do that in secrecy of getting out of Afghanistan. Yeah. You see how that worked.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, Joe Biden was trying to tell the Afghanis, "Hey, we're not leaving. We're going to be here." Effectively trying to get the military to stand up as America was trying to get up. Yeah. Wow. Is there any chance that the Taliban is going to make a deal with the U.S. on this? And what could the U.S. do? Meaning, how far and how hard do you think Trump is going to push this?
Let me just say, and I'll let Larry go. I'll repeat it again. Facts, assumptions, opinions. I'll just give you an opinion and assumption. I don't see no way in hell that the Taliban will let the United States back in.
Yeah.
They're hurting for money, and if we were to offer enough money, and we seem to be, even though we don't have it, we seem to be willing to print it and hand it over. So if you offered them enough money, I suspect they might give it an opportunity to have a chance, because they need money badly.
Yeah, I think they can get that from China, though. I think they can get that from China. But let me just say this. We offered them a whole bunch of money when we were in there before. That was to the warlords, though. I think they're more organized somewhat as a government now, but we were giving a whole bunch of money to the warlords at the time. So I don't know if that will work now. Just my opinion again.
I could see them. Your point about China is well taken. I could see them conducting a bidding war between Beijing and Washington.
Oh, for Bagram. Wow. For some reason, I cannot fathom, after 20 years of war, that the Taliban would be like, "Yeah, sure, America, come on back into the airbase and occupy the airbase."
Well, they could always kick us out. Wouldn't be much problem.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough. I want to hit this one. I want to get your take on this. And there are two parts to this. The first one is the United Nations speech by Donald Trump. Listen to what he says here. And I want to get your take on the speech. And I want to get your take on the subsequent tweet that went along with this.
It's not making Russia look. Everyone thought Russia would win this war in 3 days. But it didn't work out that way. It was supposed to be just a quick little skirmish. It's not making Russia look good. It's making them look bad.
Now, this was also in association with this particular tweet. Let me blow this up just so everybody can see it. There we are. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it's causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of European Union, is in a position to fight to win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where the war started is very much an option. Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, and what should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is much more making them look like a paper tiger. When the people living in Moscow and all of the great cities, towns, and districts throughout Russia find out what is really going on in this war, the fact that it is almost impossible for them to get gasoline through long lines that are being formed, and other things that are taking place in their war economy, where most of the money is being spent on fighting Ukraine, which is great spirit and only getting better. Ukraine would be able to take back their country in its original form, and who knows, maybe even go further than that. Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want with those weapons. Good luck to all. Now, this is being considered a 180 by Donald Trump, that he is effectively flipping once again on some kind of policy after talking to Zelensky and apparently his European vassals. Colonel
Well,
Wilkerson. I'm good. Oh, Dennis.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No,
Larry.
Chief. Come on.
No,
Go ahead.
I was just going to make a comment that, you never know what President Trump is going to say. I mean, it's always, confusing. But the one point I take away from that, you mentioned something, you said NATO, and President Trump said we would give weapons to
Europe.
NATO. He didn't say Ukraine. You follow? So he's washing his hands from it. And so when you say, a 180, he hasn't committed us. Now, you got to think about this. You're talking about Trump, and he does give a lot of rhetoric.
Right.
In his head, I don't know if he's thinking and realizing that, hey, we're a part of NATO, United States of America. We're a part of NATO. But in his mind, opinion, assumption, I think he's feeling, hey, I'm doing my part. I tried. I worked hard, but I'm washing my hands of it. I'll continue to give weapons to NATO, not Ukraine. And then the crazy part of it is, well, not only will they be able to take back their land, but more. So what is he saying there? Are we going to invade Russia and take more land or take land from them? And so, I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me. I mean, it's confusing.
Chief, I kind of read it like you. Like, there's certain parts of this, like where he says, if you take out the nonsense part, like BS stuff, oh, Russia's failing, Russia's economically, Russia is like the only growing economy in Europe. Let's put that in context. I think they were like at 4.3%. But just to make this part, he says, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win back territory. So again, he's pushing us off the Europe. I think with Europe help. And then when you get to the bottom, he says, in any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want with those weapons. So
Washing my hands up. And let me just make another.
It sounds like he's washing his hands.
Let me make another comment too. When he was saying, "Oh, they're really tied down," Ukraine's was. You forget war is hell, and when people are fighting for their lives, as Ukraine is, just take a look. Sometimes we have to look in the mirror. We just talked about us secretly getting out of Afghanistan. How did that go for us? Think about the war that was supposed to have been so-called neocons, a cakewalk in Iraq. Look at what the insurgency did for us for years. We lost 4,500 military men and women in a war with Iraq due to the insurgency for years. And oh, by the way, the hundreds of thousands are wounded for life, both physically and mentally. Yeah. And so sometimes we have to look at ourselves in the mirror. But I think that's his way of, as you alluded to, washing his hands of it. And we'll go to the historian and the professor in Larry Wilkerson now.
Yeah, Professor Colonel Wilkerson, I'm very curious. What's going on in this? Is there any way you can make sense out of this, or this is just Trump being Trump?
First, I know who wrote that for Donald. It was General Keith Kellogg. That is almost verbatim what General Keith Kellogg has been saying repeatedly about the situation. Really? So that's who wrote it for Trump. And that Hegseth let that happen is really kind of unconscionable. But Hegseth is guilty of so many sins now, I can't even enumerate them.
Yeah.
But what Trump did, in essence, was say things that, like his UN address, were absolutely insulting to other people. A real military power, that's a direct quote, a real military power would have, well, Donald, what did a real military power, because we know who you're talking about, your own country, do to Yemen, do to the Houthis, who are still firing rockets and missiles at Israel? You retreated from a ragtag rebel group in Yemen with the greatest military in the world, which is what you were insinuating. So, Donald, you are really operating off a sheet of music given to you by, and I got to say this, an 80-plus-year-old idiot named Keith Kellogg, who is so wrong about the situation in Ukraine that people like Colonel McGregor and Scott Ritter and we laugh and chortle over what he says. Now, let's just face some things here. The Russians have 300,000 troops now behind the current line, ready to go, all trained up, well-fed, well-uniformed, well-equipped, and ready to go. And they've rotated most of the troops off the front line and given them showers and baths and hot meals. And the Russians are sitting in the driver's seat 100% with regard to Ukraine.
Yep.
So the things that Trump is suggesting there, while I agree with Dennis and with your intonation too, that this is all to say, we're done. It's all coming through NATO. And by the way, it'll take 4 to 6 years for us to even manufacture the stuff that's going to come to NATO through the United States for the war. All of that is just, it's hypocrisy par excellence. I mean, the guy is just, he's unbelievable. One minute you think he's demented, the next minute you detect a bit of strategy, as you and Dennis did, and I agree with you. And then the next minute he's imbecilic again. And it just doesn't make any sense in terms of a coherent, consistent policy against which people can build a strategy and then execute it. And I would hate to be anyone underneath him, particularly in the military right now. And listening to Carney from Canada and what Carney's doing with regard to Canada's relationship with America and with NATO is quintessential pushback from a very smart man, a very good leader, apparently. And that's going to be the world. That's going to be the world. The world is looking right now, I think, at Donald Trump as either demented, an idiot, or truly crafty and dangerous. And I think they're all going to come down on that latter consideration because they're scared shitless, Jamal, of what he might do in these moments of peak that he tweets out and makes U.S. policy. They're scared, and I don't blame them.
Jamal, and what I would add to that, not only them being scared, because I mean he's unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do, and we don't know who's in the administration that would be willing to stand up to him. And the next thing I will say, I when I listened to that speech, I feel bad for our country. I really do. It's embarrassing, and it's unfortunate that people are allowing him to get out there and say those things. I'm told his teleprompter was broke. I don't know if that's true or not, but man, that was rambling. You're talking about before the world. This guy's bragging about himself, his so-called, braggadocious. What I did, and I'm the best. It's embarrassing. I feel bad for our country right now.
Ditto. Ditto.
Yeah, I guess my thing is, what do you make of this? You guys were in the military. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a president in that embarrassing of a situation on the world stage. And it seems like he didn't care that he was on the world stage, meaning he doesn't seem to respect either the United Nations as a whole or the other people in the other countries that are effectively in the United Nations. And B, it looks like it was targeted directly for his own base, that this speech is specific to my base. So I'm going to bash the leaders of the UK. I'm going to bash the leaders of Germany. I'm going to bash the United Nations for having a crappy building that I could have built for $500 million. I'm going to, it's classic Trump, but it's classic Trump in this kind of embarrassing, humiliating way on the world stage in a way that we will see him on a campaign stump. It's very strange.
And Jamal,
give me your thoughts.
He's losing his base, and he's losing it incrementally in some respects, but in almost a flood in other respects. And I reference Charlie Kirk with regard to that flood and all the people who are abandoning the MAGA group and causing MAGA people to come with them with regard to what's happening in the Levant, especially the genocide in Gaza. So he's losing people. He's also losing people still. And I think this is going to deepen in the future over the Epstein business, because there are people who believe that he should be forthcoming and that we should see the files, so to speak, and we should know who's in them and why they're in them. He's also losing people because MAGA has not really materialized in the main concept of America first. Now, this you could say was an attempt by him to emphasize that, but it's so incoherent that it really doesn't get through to them in the way that it should if he wants to solidify them again. So his political following over those issues, others too, but those are the principal issues, I think, is severing. It's falling apart. It's not as solid as it was before. He's losing people. To have Tucker Carlson, for example, formerly a spokesperson, so advocating of the MAGA philosophy, be where he is today is a real loss. To have Marjorie Taylor Greene going after him is a real loss. I'll say to have Tom Massey, because Tom Massey's a smart congressman going after him, is a real loss. he's got some fractures showing up right now. And frankly, I don't think he knows what to do about it. And so he just kind of applies Band-Aids, really, in some cases, inappropriate Band-Aids, and certainly inappropriate for international dialogue. We are losing people, Jamal. We are losing even our allies. We are having people in Tokyo, in Seoul, and elsewhere in the world talk about us in ways that they have not talked about us since I started being part of the military some 45 years ago. And here's another thing. The degradation that he is causing of our reputation in the world, and that's caused by everything from our unbridled support of Bibi Netanyahu, a maniacal killer, to the fluctuations of our relations with Europe, to the fact that most people know that, for example, Starmer, Merz, and Macron are gone. They're dead men walking. And what's going to replace them? No one knows. You've got Viktor Orban making the most salient, sentient comments in the whole panoply of NATO, saying that get on your horse and go to Moscow, Merz, Macron, and Starmer, and talk to the man in Moscow before you lose everything and before you start a global war that might go nuclear. Get on your horse and go there and talk and make some kind of deal. Don't take Trump with you. He's divorced himself. Go. Orban's making the most sane comments in NATO. You can't make this stuff up, Jamal. This is a disaster.
We're seeing it right before our eyes, too. As Larry said, you can't make this up. We're seeing it. We're seeing it. And, you know, I'll just sum this up in one way. You know, Trump is coming in office twice saying we were the laughing stock of the world. Now, guess what? Right before him, he feels, I guess, or thought they were laughing with him and not at him. But 2 times now, at the United Nations, they have laughed at him. That is embarrassing.
Well, according to him,
seen with our own eyes.
America has its confidence back, and we are just killing it. There's an image that I have to show that I am looking for that somebody in the chat reminded me of. Al Jelani walking around New York, looking at the skyline for New York. How do we reconcile that? That is an amazing image. And I'm trying to find the specific picture of him walking around, shaking hands with Rubio, shaking hands with Petraeus on stage, where they're having this kind of dialogue between each other. Give me your take on this.
Yeah,
I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on it, but I'm huge.
I saw the Petraeus Jelani conversation. I couldn't believe it. I remember David from when he was a 2-star, and I was on a panel with him, along with Samantha Powers and several other people. And David was in his cups then. He was really a vigorous individual. He was then in Iraq as the Minsticky commander and such. And I saw him on the stage, and I said, "Is that the David Petraeus I used to know?"
That's him.
But you got to remember too. I think there's some truth. Really, I think there's truth to the Operation Broadwell that people are talking about. It was a Mossad operation. They put Broadwell on him. They put Broadwell with him in order to compromise him.
What do you mean, Petraeus?
Yeah, the
okay. I don't know the story. I don't know this one. You gotta give me a little bit more details on this one.
She's the woman. She's the woman that had an affair with him, and it broke. Okay. And it ruined his reputation at the moment anyway. He kind of resurrected it afterwards, but it really hurt him. And I'm hearing very, very good sources that Paula Broadwell, the woman who's 25 years younger than he, she was a Mossad agent. And that was a typical sting operation on David Petraeus to compromise him.
He was a honeypot.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's unfair.
That's the term of art.
That just feels unfair. It's like we're men, right? It's like, God, that's
but
unfair.
then you have to also realize that there is a good possibility that the 30 plus times Ehud Barak went to the island with Epstein and the 30 plus times that Bill Clinton went to the island were both used against them to stymie the Oslo Accords at the last minute. Remember how abrupt that final session was? Arafat was absolutely thunderstruck. He didn't know what hit him. He was agreeing. The Arabs behind him were agreeing. they thought they were going to succeed. And all of a sudden the talks collapsed. Well, I'm hearing from good sources again that what happened was Ehud Barak, then the Israeli prime minister, participating in the talks, and Bill Clinton, of course, our president, were presented with the evidence that they had against them from the Epstein business. And so the talks collapsed.
You know, Bill Clinton to this day blames Arafat for that. He's like, oh, the Arabs couldn't make a deal. They just wanted to kill Jews.
And Arafat was in 2002 in Ramallah when he met with Powell. They had a little bit of a conversation, and the conversation was, I didn't know what hit me. And
wow.
the Israeli public affairs campaign to blame it on the Arabs was put in motion a half an hour before the final failure. So the Israelis were contemplating the whole thing and had a massive propaganda campaign to blame Arafat and the Arabs.
Hey, and let me just add something when you talk about Bill Clinton and what people seem to forget, because we blame George W. Bush for the Iraq War, which was at the time he was at the top of the food chain. But all this started, with Bill Clinton. He's the one that had the regime change policy for Iraq. So he laid the groundwork out. Bill Clinton, the regime change policy for Iraq came on the Bill Clinton, and President Bush just carried it out.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Clinton has given excuses in post-administration remarks that was simply for covert operations, authorization for covert operations, not for war. Bull. Read the act.
Oh, you're saying, yeah. I mean, apparently Bill Clinton has been doing a lot of lying, and Hillary Clinton, about.
Oh, they're two of the biggest liars. Next to Netanyahu, they're two of the biggest liars on the earth.
Listen, I don't want to get started. I mean, my family and friends get mad at me. I have no love for Hillary Clinton whatsoever, because she's one of the biggest liars you can ever imagine.
Wow.